Oh, I'm Austin.
I'm Brennan,
We are the co-founders of Simple.
the smart dumb phone.
We're currently creating mobile software that is curating the experience that you have with the world around you.
That means all the helpful stuff on your phone, from utility and communications applications, and none of the distracting stuff. No browser, no games, no multimedia, no social media.
We started back a couple years ago while living abroad. Traveling abroad, it opened our idea up to what the phone can do as far as utility purposes. Living in Asia, they use your phone for everything, whether it's mobile payments, buying train tickets, plane tickets, mobile orders, everything. It's so in tune and it's so simple. Here, we love being attached to our phone carrier. All right, if you have Verizon, for example, usually your phone and your SIM card are both provided by Verizon. Where in many other countries, you'll buy the phone and using one medium, and then your SIM card or cellular data will be a whole nother separate medium.
And they make it so easy too. Like when I got to school, they gave me a welcome deck of cards, and in the deck of cards was a SIM card. And all you do is like pop the SIM card in. When you first open the internet to the provider's page, and they're like, "Oh, here are all your plans." Like, get 100 gigs of data for £15, or get like unlimited data for £25 a month. Oh, do you want to pay 3 months? Do you want to pay 1 month? Do you want to pay recurring? So it's just like super simple, and you know exactly what you're getting for how long. It really helped us figure out that there are multiple ways you can use your phone. And what we have going on here isn't necessarily the only way or the most optimal way to use a cell phone for helpful purposes. So we said, okay, there's some room for improvement here that we can bring into the United States to help people.
It's just using your phone in a different way. Kind of wanted to delete Instagram off my phone, but at the same time, that's where all my friends needed to communicate with me. We're like, I wonder if there's a way to separate the two, have the messaging portion over here without actually having Instagram downloaded. And at that time, from what we knew, there was no option.
4 years after having this problem, we're like, hey, we still want all these features made by all these different companies rolled up into a phone that's just purely for utility. That still didn't exist. And so we're like, okay, if not now, then when type thing, you know, because, and if not us, then who? Because obviously nobody is doing it.
What we wanted to include, we had a list.
Just because this stuff that we wanted. So we first found that, oh, there are a couple people that are interested in this. Cool. And these are the couple of features that all these people want. So then it came to like, how the heck do we build this thing? We have no background in technology, which you could say is a bad thing, but you could also say it's a good thing. If you're in any industry, you're going to carry some sort of preconceived best practices that you might think are best practices, but maybe they're not. Like, convention isn't always necessarily good. And so there's an advantage to being an outsider in an industry. Like, for example, when Jack Ma at Alibaba was making Alipay, he went to a person he really trusted and he really admired as a hard worker and someone who could figure things out, and said, what do you know about PayPal? Or have you heard of PayPal? Person's like, no. And he's like, all right, what do you know about mobile payments or the payments in general? He's like, nothing. And he's like, all right, you're the perfect person to run Alipay. Whereas one might see that as immature, if you still use these best practices like doing due diligence and doing quality research and putting good people where they're supposed to be, you don't necessarily have to be in the industry, and you can look at problems from a fresh perspective. Tech usually exists to build tech to solve problems, but we, come from a different place outside of tech to say like, look, all of our lives we've used X, Y, and Z technologies to help us do some other thing in our lives. We're not like super into the tech itself. So like in this case, it's like, all right, what's the best way we can conceive of that this specific type of technology, being like mobile technology, can help us live our lives seamlessly? And so, just coming at it from first principles that way without the preconceived notions of what technology is supposed to be in the mobile space was really helpful for us when it came to thinking foundationally about what a phone should be. It's still pretty dang hard to know the right questions to ask when you're making something new in an industry you know nothing about.
We're extremely blessed by having the people around us that we can freely ask questions and not worry about stigmas. They're more than willing to share what's right or wrong within that industry, or what's possible or what's not possible, kind of giving us a reality check of how things work.
There were a couple rude awakenings. We go into it kind of innocently, and like as we're learning it, they're like, oh, so this specific thing that you need to do for this, it's like a hardcore engineering task.
Yeah. But at the same time, the opposite is true. When we were offered for someone to make the app store for $20,000 or something ridiculous, and we did it with $150, $200.
Yeah.
On that flip end too, us being naive is also making us scrappy and finding ways to get through and utilize the resources around us.
In an environment where you have zero knowledge, it's really hard to tell the best way to sift through knowledge, because you don't know what's true, what's not true, and when people are taking you for a ride. What were the guardrails we used when sifting through new information to kind of take a 1 foot in front of the other approach to learning the industry and what we're trying to do?
It was a lot of meetings we're having with all these people everywhere, and they were giving us tons of information. This is what you're supposed to do. This is what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to do this. And some of it was contradicting. Some of it was just super over the top, not where we were at this point in time with simple in the business. So it's taking the information that we're given and sifting through the viability of, all right, is this plausible for us?
Yeah.
Does it fit? And does it fit our key principles? And is it going to move us in the right direction of completing XYZ?
6 months ago versus 4 months ago, we could be getting the same amount of information
Mm-hmm.
from a variety of different sources. The difference is information we're getting 6 months ago, like you were saying, it's just so much from all these different sources, and we didn't know what was right and what was wrong. So we had to defer to a lot of intuition and being like, does this pass our sniff test? Does this seem like a very important and very useful piece of information? And we would kind of err on the side of caution. So in the beginning, we start the knowledge acquisition process very slowly.
Yeah. We just took in everything, I think.
Yeah.
And then we brought that to the people we trusted. Does this work?
Mm.
Is this something we should focus on? It's kind of like finding where we should file all this information in these different slots. Is it the delete trash button, or is it the save for later button?
As we got more and more wins for little chunks of knowledge, our method for asking the right questions to the right people got better. We had a talk with a IT consultant about like, all right, man, what do we need to build, a ROM or a launcher? We didn't know which one we needed to start with. They said, oh, you should probably do a ROM. All right, this probably means a ROM is more expensive. So what does that mean? Okay, so he wants us to build a ROM. What's the difference between a ROM and a launcher? We just asked a lot of people and did a lot of research until we figured out what the heck the difference was and why is one more expensive than the other. And then once we determined the difference there, we could determine the order of operations, and then we could ask questions on the back of that. What does it take to build the ROM? What does it take to build the launcher? Which one needs to come first? How can we test? The more and more we go down these lines of inquiry, the better our questions become.
Learning to ask the right questions, learning to ask the right people for information while not discrediting information from all sources. Surveys and feedback, it shows what we think versus what we think is important versus what is actually important. Like there are some things on the phone that we thought we would take off, like the dual profile. We thought that would be like a major hit and people love it. People like it. It's not necessarily the thing that gets brought up the most.
Same thing with the aggregated messaging. For us, the reason we didn't want to get a phone is because we wanted DMs, Instagram DMs. Yeah. And so to us,
that was the end all be all.
Yeah, it's like, look, this is a solution. When we made our prototype and we were showing it to people, one person out of 50 even commented on it.
That was the thing we're most excited about. Where other people just kind of breeze past it.
And it's like, well, this isn't a priority. The survey seemed to serve a dual purpose. Mm-hmm. It helped us get our idea out there. So it was one way of doing some sort of market validation, not just what do you think of like the UX and UI, but also what do you think of the idea? Kind of an informal pitch as well. Hey, what do you think about this? Oh, dang, that's cool. Here, try it out. What do you think? This is what we're thinking that is going to look like. So then we get a bit of to test the waters in terms of what type of person this is going to work for. And then for those people, does our solution interest them and does it make sense?
For you, does this work or does this not work? who do you think this is actually built for? What do you think this is actually built for? And seeing the range of variety of answers there, it was like, okay, so people think this will work for all these different age groups for different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was a bit eye-opening to me because I feel like I had the feeling and the assumption that they were going to all say one group of people for this reason. No, it's so broad, which means there's a lot of people who are open to possibly using this. Going based off surveys, that's the response we're getting, is it could potentially be for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So our challenge, how do we narrow that down?
What we tell people now is we are building for simplicity so that older folks can use it. Mm-hmm. So the UI and UX needs to be so simple that you can give it to somebody who's a bit older and they can just use it straight out of the box intuitively. Yep. The privacy needs to be built for someone who wants to just live completely off grid. They want to be self-sustaining. They don't want to interface much with society, if that makes sense. So privacy and security standards for them. And then we want to build third-party functionality for professionals 25 to 35 in the workplace and Gen Z, because they have a crazy amount of third-party applications they're using, mm-hmm. and we need to be able to service that.
Correct.
As we're doing the survey, we're learning how we need to build and why. And on the flip side, when we're talking to people now, our explanation of the phone is becoming so much clearer. Stop studying, start doing. When you start doing something and you do something wrong, you will know immediately.
You'll learn very fast.
Yeah, and you're like, okay, well, that was wrong. And the thing is, the deal is, just don't make it a moral or a self-confidence issue. It's just like, oh,
retry.
Yeah, that's wrong. All right, next thing.
Next video.
Stop putting, next video.
We used to go through, for the App Store one, how many videos did we go through?
A lot of videos.
A lot of videos. Just find the right one that worked. What was helpful is us going straight towards, this is what we want to solve. How do we do this specific action item? You look that up, you find the answers. Looking up things directly correlated to the step you want to complete, right? Like the coding classes we took when we first started, we thought that would help everything. Not helpful. We broke it down to, instead of a broad, this is how you code in this specific language, to what is this specific action need?
There is a certain point where there is some sort of asymmetry for your own labor versus outsourcing something if the problem is super, super sticky. There's this 80-20 rule, right? Yep. You can get 80% of the way in 20% of the time, and that last 20% is going to take 80% of the time. We can do that 80% ourselves, mm-hmm. and then it's not worth it to us to spend 80% of our time to do that last hard 20% when we could just pass it off to somebody else who can do that quick. Technical workflow is also a whole different world with Jira and GitHub connecting all of these building tools, and that's something that honestly we're still getting used to.
The hardest part is there's so many offerings. What's the perfect stack? You're like, well, there is no perfect stack because it depends on what you're trying to do in that specific time that's going to help you.
We're doing the same thing now as we did with how do we build the product itself with our workflow. What do we need now?
Yep.
We need GitHub to store our code so people can access it, and we need Jira to say these are the steps we need to take to get to this milestone, this milestone, this milestone. Now that we have people testing it, we need bug reports. How do we put it in the phone? Yep. Where can we find it? Where can we make it easier to find it? How can we connect it to our workflow? You don't need to do everything right at the beginning. Just do what you need
for the next step.
Yeah, it's step by step.
As of now, we are wrapping up our full development of the software and integration with our launcher. In the next, hopefully, month or so, we'll start testing ourselves as well as our alpha testers. Right now, we have 14 who are going to take that on and probably run into more problems than we can count, but that's expected.
You know the whole Fibonacci thing?
Yep.
What we're doing right now is we're just getting revisions and then reviewing them and sending revisions back. Yep. So then what we're going to do is we're going to run that same process again. We're going to get revisions. We're going to test it. We're going to send it back, get revisions, give it to 14 people.
Yeah.
We're going to get revisions. We're going to send it back. We're going to give it to 100 people. We're going to get revisions. We're going to send it back, and we're just going to wash, rinse, and repeat.
Yep.
Yeah.
Don't wait for the perfect product. Especially with the alpha and beta testers, they know that it's early. They know that there's going to be bugs. They know that there's going to be hiccups. So why wait for a perfect product to give them? Don't. Something that you stress about, something we stress about, like the fact that the apps are a 0.5 millimeter off because of font changing within the App Store, they might not even say anything about it.
Yeah. Everything is testing and everything is just experimenting and tinkering, from getting our name out there and trying to figure out what people want and what we can give people in terms of messaging and marketing, showing ourselves and saying what we're about. It's testing.
Yeah.
And it's tiring. Like
Very tiring.
Like that. And
Very
this is
tiring.
probably going to be maybe less than something that you want to watch, but we have to do this before we can get to really streamlined good stuff that people want to watch. And then same thing for our partners. We have a pretty long roadmap that depends on partnership with a lot of third parties. And while we're not ready to build right now, and maybe it's even inappropriate time to start having these conversations, we're like, you know what? We need to at least practice talking to partners.
Yeah.
What words do we need to say? What are the incentives they're looking for to even partner? So we're starting that. So in addition to like doing the messy iterative process for building, for marketing, for partnerships, we're also doing it for talking to who we call stakeholders. So we have an email list of like 20 right now, just about, for who we call stakeholders, who is everyone from angel to VC to people who could contribute knowledge, who might be able to help us by way of resources, who we don't necessarily need their help right now, but we're just like keeping them updated about like, here's how the progress is going. Just so we have that resource available to us when we need to pull the trigger, if we need to pull the trigger in that regard. So say, for example, specifically with fundraising, we don't plan on fundraising anytime soon, but it's best practice to say, okay, there's even a chance we might fundraise. So it's a good opportunity to clue people in who might be able to give us resources to capital like that.
Like you said it earlier, we're building these bridges way ahead of time. Why? Because we're thinking for the long term. The reason that founders sell is because they don't think big enough for their vision. So once their vision is done and complete and they don't build on it anymore, they want to get out of it. For us, we're trying to avoid that by thinking long term and, all right, what's the next step for us? Okay, we're taking all this stuff out. What do we do next long term, and how do we help the people in a way that is actually beneficial to them versus confuddled and confusing?
We kind of have these 5 principles. Be kind. Kind is like genuinely care for the people that you're affecting and that are affecting you.
People first. It's just like, no matter who it is, whether it's the people using the phone, whether it's the companies we're building bridges with, whether it's the people in our network, whether it's the people running the events around us. People first.
Yeah. Everything comes back to people. If it's not for people, then what's it for? And then build for the long term. We heard something from Charlie Munger the other day that said the most sustainable business is the one that does what's right by the people that it's serving. And that's like what the true meaning of sustainability is. Sustainability is it's providing a real value add, not just some like self-deluding way, like, oh, this is helpful because of some XYZ abstract thing. No, this is going to make a truly positive effect. And then developing that and bringing that to market in an ethical way that treats people kindly. And that's what true sustainability is, and that's how you build for the long term.
The next one is quality. Give somebody the best quality that you can.
If you're going to do something, don't do it halfway.
Put your all into it.
Yeah.
If people expect 80%, give 110.
Just because it's the right thing to do.
It's the right thing to do.
And the last one is, did we say sustainability? Is that its own one?
Sustainability
is that its own one?
Yeah, sustainability.
Oh, sustainability and long term. What's the difference? Maybe we have 4 values.
Go to our website, www.gosimple.rsvp. Put your name in the wait list. Also, you can reach out to us via social media. I know it's backwards, but it's what we got to do.
I'm not conflicted about the social media at all. I'm fine with it. I'm still going to go on it even when I have the dumb phone.
Yeah.
To be honest. I like social media. And I think I'm going to like it even more when I'm not on it all the time.
When you have a curated experience.
Even though it's not going to be on the phone, social media.
Exactly. Be on your laptop.
Yeah. It has nothing to do with how you can reach us. But just a side note.
Thanks for listening. That was a lot of questions and a lot of answers.
Bye-bye.
Bye.